Professor Márcio, the floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the NSF-FAPESP Education in STEM webinar series on mathematics. I'm really honored to open this webinar, marking a significant step in fostering collaboration between researchers from the US and São Paulo, Brazil. The objectives of the webinar are: first, advance research education in STEM fields, particularly mathematics. Also focus on promoting equity and improving teaching practices. And third, address the vital element on racial equity in mathematics education, benefiting all students, especially those from underrepresented communities. The collaboration between FAPESP and NSF is built on a shared vision to enhance the quality of education through rigorous research, but also promote partnerships for impactful research outcomes, and also bring together experts from a diverse background to share insights, best practices, and research findings. This webinar will cover topics and discussions on professional development of mathematics teachers, and also development algebraic thinking in primary school students, and for early mathematics education for Latin children. So this series is a seed of encouraging new collaborations between researchers from São Paulo and the United States. It aimed to spark ideas and partnerships leading to significant advancements in STEM education research. I hope you engage with the speakers and have meaningful discussions that will support the NSF and FAPESP teams in directing the opportunities for bilateral cooperation. So I look forward to your continued participation in the subsequent webinars of this series. I would like to extend gratitude to all speakers and participants for their contributions to this important dialogue, and also for NSF and FAPESP team who put this together, especially Professors Ana Maria, Richard, Rosa, Diana, and Carolina. Without further ado, I will introduce Dr. James Moore, Assistant Director of the Directorate for STEM Education at NSF, who will also provide opening remarks. Thank you all, and I look forward to a productive and insightful section. Professor James Moore, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. On behalf of the National Science Foundation and its Directorate for STEM Education, I would like to welcome all the speakers and attendees from the United States and Brazil. Today's webinar is a great opportunity for our two beloved nations to share learning across our STEM education research ecosystem, to help seed new research collaborations. To quote the NSF director, Dr. Panchanathan, these types of relationships, I quote, help us to unleash new talent, ideas, and innovation at speed and scale, end quote. At the National Science Foundation, we know that global engagement is critical to promoting the progress of science and engineering innovation. In fact, NSF has a rich, storied history of facilitating international research cooperation and building and maintaining scientific collaboration worldwide. We understand the scientific dividends that stem from frequent and creative interactions, like researchers from around the world really revealing the first ever image of a black hole, or a team of international students and researchers discovering microplastics in the Arctic Ocean. And with our collaborations, a key component is addressing the grand challenges of our time in STEM. With that, equity in STEM. That includes equity in how we interact with our international counterparts. It means fostering a STEM community that is committed to equitably improving society through the continuous advancement of science and education. In fact, EDU has an entire division devoted to broadening participation and building equity in STEM education and beyond. One example of how we're working in this space includes our racial equity in STEM education program. Projects supported by this program are led or co-developed by individuals in communities most impacted by systemic racism. For example, at Bowie State University, for instance, researchers are working in partnership with local and academic institutions to learn what systemic barriers dissuade Black male students from pursuing STEM majors. Or at Arizona State University, Indigenous and Latinx scholars are engaging with graduate students in immersive and identity-based learning experiences to help foster a STEM environment where Indigenous and Latinx students can thrive. Another example is through our broadening participation centers. For example, in 2020, NSF established a new center to study and model the successful practices of historically Black colleges and universities, which is a distinction that we give such university types in the United States. Researchers from Morehouse College, Spelman College, and Virginia State University are developing evidence-based interventions to transform mainstream education. And later today, you will hear about another BP center focused on math education and research at HBCUs. We all know that STEM disparities are not just a national problem, but a global problem. So while NSF-funded projects and centers are generating valuable research that is making STEM more equitable, the US and Brazil can also learn from each other through our shared challenges and opportunities to advance equity throughout the STEM education ecosystem. Therefore, we hope this webinar will be just the start of continued conversations and potential new collaborations around equity in STEM education. In closing, I want to thank the São Paulo Research Foundation and the NSF team who put this webinar together, including Drs. Toya Frank, Leroy Jones, Sonel D. Hain, Lear Seen, and Teresa De La Punte. I want to thank you all, and I hope that this will be the first of many collaborations that we will have to improve educational equity throughout the STEM ecosystem around the country. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We'd like to, or good morning, depending on your time zone. We would like to welcome you today. I'm Dr. Toya Frank. I will be moderating today along with my colleague. I am a program officer here at the National Science Foundation in the Education Directorate.
So hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining today. I am Ana Almeida, advisor to the FAPESP's Scientific Director in the Social Sciences, and I also coordinate two special programs at FAPESP, the Improvement of Public Education Program and the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Program. We are very proud to launch this webinar series that's not just about research, but about fostering connections between our two research communities. The presentations will be followed by a Q&A. Please use the Q&A button to send your questions. We understand that there might be a language barrier, so we encourage you to send your questions in whichever language you feel more comfortable with, and we will do our best to translate them. This webinar is being recorded, and a link will be shared afterwards. So I go back to Toya.
So today is the first webinar in a series of webinars, and our focus for today is mathematics education, both in the United States and Brazilian context. And as Dr. Moore shared, the projects that we will be presenting today focus on equity in mathematics education and our awards made both in the racial equity and STEM education program, as well as those in the in EES, Education for Excellence. So without further ado, we are going to have our 6 presenters present. First, one presenter from the US representing an NSF project, and then the presentation to follow will be a presenter on behalf of FAPESP. So our first presenter for today is Dr. Smila Ramos Montañez, and she will be presenting Promoting Equity in Early Mathematics Education for Latinx students. Dr. Smila.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name is Smila Ramos Montañez, and I'm very excited to be here with you today, engaging in this important conversation. I work as the co-director of the Center for Equitable Family STEM Learning at TURC. TURC is a nonprofit organization based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, that's focused on developing programs and conducting research related to STEM education across the United States. At the Center for Equitable Family STEM Learning, we focus on partnering with families and community partners to understand the unique ways that families engage with science, technology, engineering, and math outside of school. We try to elevate the voices and perspectives of families in STEM education research, and we develop programs and collaboration models that help transform systemic inequities in STEM education for families. Our projects use participatory research methods and asset-based approaches to counter deficit narratives and highlight the strengths and knowledge that already exist within families from diverse cultural backgrounds. And today, I will use the time in the webinar to talk about one project in particular, which, like Toya said, is funded by the NSF Racial Equity in STEM Education program. And it's focused on promoting equity in early math education for Latinx children and their families in preschool programs like Head Start. And while I'm the only one presenting today for the project, I do want to acknowledge that it's an extremely collaborative project. And I work with other folks, including my other co-director of the center, Scott Pattison at TURC, Beatriz Quintos at the University of Maryland, and Juliana Melsi at New York University Steinhardt. And then what I want to do is I want to tell you a little bit behind the motivations for the project, tell you a little bit about the project and the things that we're learning. So that's how I will use the time that I'm allotted in the webinar. So this project was inspired by the Latinx community, especially families with young children in Portland, Oregon, who we've been working with for the past 10 years. Their strength, their leadership, resilience, motivation, and power is evident as they often navigate systems that were not designed for their benefit and that create barriers that they work to diligently overcome. And families with young children often share the sentiment that's in this quote that's in the slide. They are highly invested in their children's education. They want their children to succeed. They want their children to make it further than they have. And they are very invested and constantly looking for opportunities to support their children's growth and development. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, they encounter barriers along the way. In math education, which is an area that's really important, especially in early childhood, because it lays the foundation for ongoing engagement with math and STEM broadly, Many of the Latinx families and other families from other communities often encounter deficit and negative perceptions of how they can contribute to their children's education. There are power hierarchies that exist between schools and families that often place families as outsiders, and there's a lack of recognition of the value that families and out-of-school experiences can bring to support rich math learning. So there are negative views that are perpetuated around parents' perceptions of math and their role in their children's education. So this is really pushing us to think about building more authentic partnerships with families and other community members as starting places for equitable math research and education. A second barrier that we're addressing or trying to address with this project relates to the way that we conceptualize ideas about math or think about math. What we've been told math is and what counts as math are often ideas that are rooted in histories of marginalization and discrimination. And those are integrated often in visible and invisible ways into curricula. So with this project, what we're trying to do is push against those traditional ideas. We're trying to value and incorporate the knowledge and experience that exists in communities, that math that is present for families in their everyday lives, and the way that they use math to solve or engage in everyday problem solving. So I want to tell you a little bit about the project. So this is a 3-year project. It is using an equity-informed design-based implementation research called DBIR to study the design of a new model that involves parent and educator dialogue groups as spaces where teachers and parents can come together. They can work on building strong relationships, balancing some of the power inequities that exist between schools and families. And this model uses dialogic approaches where we really try and are cognizant of power dynamics, and we try to distribute that power among participants. We want to come into the space as learners. We recognize that everybody has a diverse set of experiences and knowledge, and we want them to bring that knowledge and that experience. So that is valid, is welcome, is encouraged in the space, but we're also learning how we can work together to explore new ideas. So in the project, we're learning how to design these dialogue groups to be able to expand the ways that we think about math and math education in early childhood. We are bringing in the rich funds of knowledge that are related to math that families already possess. We're creating connections and awareness with the schools. And we think that it's a model that can be used and leveraged across the education system for families and for parent engagement. And it's a model that we think can be used to explore other aspects other than math and math education. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we're learning in this first year of our project. So we just completed the first of the 3 years, and we've conducted a pilot dialogue group that included 4 teachers and 8 families to test the group structures that we have designed and the way that we explore about math. So I want to share a little bit of findings, both in terms of the dialogue groups and the math content. So in terms of the dialogue groups, we're learning that in order for that structure to work, it's really important to think about power dynamics and include strategies that intentionally help balance that power. For us, one of those has been preparing both teachers and parents separately before we meet together, helping each group understand why we're doing the work, what will be happening, and establishing a series of group norms about how we want to work together. Across the meetings, it's also been critical to think about being intentional, building trust and relationships. So in our space, we share food together, we discuss what's happening in life, and we find opportunities to share personal stories that really help us connect with each other. Additionally, in our space, we're trying to create a bilingual space because we have some families that are bilingual, some that prefer English, and some that prefer Spanish. So thinking about creating that safe space that supports communication has been an important lesson. In terms of math, we're learning that both teachers and parents are coming in with specific ideas about what math is to them. And exploring math concepts and ideas is bringing up a variety of feelings and emotions, from enjoyment to anxiety to even trauma, as people think about their own histories as math learners and doers. So it's been important to validate those emotions and create opportunities that help people push past those ideas and feelings. So one strategy has been using hands-on activities that explore math concepts in everyday contexts. It's been a wonderful way to help people push past these ideas. We've tried activities connected to arts and crafts, celebrations, household chores, outdoors, and dancing. And what we're hearing from families and teachers is that they're seeing that exploring math and math concepts can be fun. And they realize that there's a variety of ways that they can do that with their children, both at home and in the classroom. This year, we've been focusing on algebraic thinking as an area of focus for math because it connects to everyday knowledge and helps folks push past some of those ideas that they have already about math. We hope to continue pushing in this area and thinking about other areas of math we could explore. And then finally, not surprisingly, we're also hearing from families and teachers that it's important that at the end of the experience that there's a set of resources that can be both used across home and school. And I know it's been a little bit of a whirlwind. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. And then now I'll just pass it back to the moderators. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smila. This is a very exciting and inspiring research. We will be very happy to connect more and to understand a little bit more of the challenges that you're facing. We'll talk about this later on, I believe. And now we have Dr. Alessandro Jacques Ribeiro, who will be talking about professional learning tasks as a resource for professional development of mathematics teachers. He's from the Federal University of the ABC in São Paulo. Thank you, Alessandro.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, FAPESP and NSF for this invitation. My talk is about some results of research projects we have developed here in Federal University of ABC. I talk about 10 minutes, so I try to do my best. And if you have any questions in the final, we can talk a bit more. First of all, I would like to talk about one curiosity. It's because the name of our university. All the time I go to somewhere, people ask me, why Federal University of ABC? Why is that? And this is the map of Brazil. We've had a highlight in São Paulo state. And this is in orange, the region of the cities near of São Paulo capital. The name is ABC. It's an important area with 7 cities, but mainly Santo André, São Bernardo do Campo, and São Caetano do Sul. For this reason, the region received the name of ABC. And this is our university. This is the campus Santo André with A and the campus São Bernardo with B. We already don't have any campus yet with C. Well, talking about our research background, our mainly thing we have researching and investigating, it's about the teacher learning. It's very common in mathematics education. We investigating student learning, but nowadays and some time ago, we have discovered the importance to research it, to understand how teacher learning in which context and which situation. For this, we choose to talk about teacher learning takes place in their daily practice. So when I talk about teacher learning, I have to thinking about the classroom moments, but also the moments before and after these classes, the teachers working in the classroom. And another important thing, it's about collaboration with colleagues and others. And another thing it's very important to think about, it's the teacher learning, it's distributed about individuals as well as in the artifacts, excuse me, like the tasks prepared for their education. And this is the mainly thing I would like to talk, how we are preparing, developing, and reflecting about specific tasks for the teacher learning. This is which we have talked about as professional learning tasks in their components. So what is a professional learning task? Well, a professional learning task have a mathematical task. So it's important to think, if I wanted to develop the mathematical knowledge and the mathematical reasoning with teachers, I have to begin our learning, beginning our professional development with a mathematical task. But if we have and we need to thinking about the practice, about what happened in the classes, it's important I use records of practice. For example, representations of practices, protocols of students' resolution, and the videos of the lessons, and so on. Another important thinking is it's about inquiry-based learning, because normally teacher education in the initial teacher education or even in continuous teacher education, all the time it's about lectures. So if I wanted the teachers teaching mathematics in another way, I have to practice with them in a different way. So we use this kind of inquiry-based learning as an approach of our professional development programs. And it's important as well to thinking about to develop mathematical and didactical knowledge in an integrated way. When I'm thinking about to professional learning for teachers, I don't have to think even about just mathematical or even about just didactical knowledge, but how can I do this in an integrated way? Well, for this, we have some research questions that we are investigating for several years. For example, the first question that guides our working is, how do we create a professional learning tasks that promotes development and learning for those involved in teacher education programs? So if I want to develop this kind of education with math and didactic together, considering practice as an important component, so I have to use this kind of professional learning tasks. And another thing we have investigated is what learning about mathematics teaching was promoted to teachers and teacher educators when working using these professional learning tasks. So far, we don't have actually investigating about STEM, just about mathematics education. But for now, I propose some future research questions. How do I create professional learning tasks about STEM education, integrating science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in the just one professional learning tasks, or a sort of these tasks, and how can I promote the teacher's learning for the mathematics class? Our theoretical framework, it's about pedagogical content knowledge from Schumann. It's very well known for everybody. And mathematical knowledge for teaching in a specific theoretical framework for mathematics. And we are using the teacher professional learning very connected with the classroom practice, and professional learning opportunities as a framework that can help us to understand if and how teachers learning when they are working together with us, teacher educators, and with each others. Well, our teacher educator program has something like 15 4-works weekly meetings, and we have working with individual work in small groups, plenary and collective discussions. And it's important to highlight that teachers, working with hands-on activities, as you can see in the figure on the left side. So what kind of answers we are discovering in this research we have developing? First of all, that the teacher educator organizing PLTs to invite the teacher to discuss, into reflection about what happened in the mathematics classroom. Teacher educator also choose adequate record of practices, and teacher educators then themselves prepare collective discussions that can promote the learning during the professional development sessions. Regarding the learning environments, it's important that this kind of professional education sessions working every time in a collaborative environment. So with this, we can break the hierarchical form of knowledge construction. The teacher educators use video of lessons as a tool to promote professional learning. And in the last, the episodes selected by the teacher educator, it's important to engagement the teachers in terms of immersion, resonance, authenticity, and motivation. This is a model we are developing since 2017. We are discovering how can I create professional learning opportunities for teachers for these plots with using tasks, teacher educator, and the discussions. This is the paper where this theoretical model are published. And future research questions we can think in later. It's about how I said before, how can I create professional learning tasks with teacher education, and how can I prepare mathematics teacher to teach teacher STEM education for the challenges of the 21st century. This is a QR code if you want to download my presentation. And I have to thank you so much for your attention and for the opportunity. And I have to apologize because my English is not so good. So I hope you could understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ribeiro, for your presentation. It was incredibly interesting and engaging, and I look forward to conversation later in today's webinar. There was one question raised in the Q&A. We just wanted to make everyone aware that copies of the presentations will be available after today's webinar. So you will have access to the slides from today's presentation. It is my pleasure to introduce our next set of speakers, Dr. Samantha Holquist and Dr. Diane Shi from Child Trends and Search Institute, respectively. They will present adapting measures of student engagement in math, designing from a Black and Latino perspective.
Always helpful to unmute myself. Thank you so much, Toya. And thank you all for joining us today. So as Toya said, we are presenting on our work for adapting a measure of math engagement for the perspectives of Black and Latino students. I am with Diane today. This project is also conducted in partnership with McRel International and Bloomington Public Schools. So our research projects, the goals are to understand Black and Latino students' engagement in math, create a survey of student engagement to better capture Black and Latino students' experiences, and understand how students' math engagement supports academic and social emotional outcomes. This project really started from a perspective that that Black and Latino students traditionally do not score the highest on math engagement measures in the United States. And this project thought about, okay, well, what if those measures were actually created from their perspectives? Those measures might not actually be capturing their ways of learning in the ways that we could better capture them. And so this project was really to center Black and Latino students in the research, to create a new measure to think about ways that better capture their experiences. So in order to center Black and Latino students in the work, we used a community engaged research project design in partnership with Bloomington Public Schools, which is located in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Well, is located as a suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota. For our community engaged research project, one student and one teacher representative from each of the 5 Bloomington middle and high schools are a part of our research team. And so we have 3 middle schoolers and 2 high schoolers, and then 5 researchers as part of our team. We, the students, teachers, and researchers, meet regularly to plan, collect data, discuss findings, and make all research decisions related to the project. And so in order to do this, we walk the students and teachers through a series of activities to help them understand the complex way in which research is conducted, to help them understand different ways in which we're analyzing the data, from Roche analysis to exploratory factor design, and to really help them make decisions that are centering the experiences of Black and Latino students and having high research validity. So for this project so far, we are ending the year 2, and it's a 3-year research project. So far, we've collected a variety of data in spring 2023 and spring 2024 to better understand Black and Latino students' math engagement. This included administering a math engagement survey. First, the Math and Science Engagement Scales, which is the traditional engagement survey used in the United States, and then the initial AMME survey, which is the first version of our adapted measure that we created. And AMME stands for Adapted Measure of Math Engagement. And that was administered to all middle and high school students in Bloomington Public Schools. Between those 2 surveys, we got roughly 5,000 responses. We've also done focus groups with Black and Latino middle and high school students. We did focus groups with about 150 students across 27 focus groups. And then we did interviews with their teachers, and that was 8 teachers. So this project is taking place from fall 2022 to spring 2025. We plan to share findings at the following points. Year 1 findings are already posted on our website. We'll share that with you at the end of this. Year 2 findings will be posted in about 3 months, and then year 3 findings will be posted in fall 2025. And year 3 findings will include a toolkit of how we did this project so other people can replicate this work where they are, and also all the data that we collected so far in the final measure that we created. So really quickly, the AMME journey. So first, we administered and analyzed data from the MSES, which is the Math and Science Engagement Survey. That is the traditional survey to use to capture math engagement. Then we did focus groups and interviews, and then developed new items from that to complement that survey, or we changed items in that survey to better match the perspectives of Black and Latino students. We then administered the initial AMME, which was version 1. And this was to understand what extent does the AMME reflect qualitative data so far and in what ways could be improved. We are currently conducting additional focus groups and item refinement of the AMME, and this is to make sure it is rooted in students' lived experiences, and then also that it captures the many different ways in which math engagement occurs. And then finally, we're administering the final AMME, and then this will be, does the AMME accurately and clearly capture Black and Latino students' experiences with math engagement? Those are kind of our research questions for those 2. So one final thing to note is that the AME is designed to support practitioners, teachers, administrators, district leaders in understanding their Black and Latino students' engagement. It can be used on all students, and it is in Bloomington Public Schools, but that is because that district primarily serves Black and Latino students. And so the purpose of the measure is to support teachers in adjusting the ways in which they show up in the classroom, the ways they work with students, and to increase Black and Latino students' engagement. We also have designed it to work for researchers, but the primary audience of it is teachers. Okay, turning it over to Diane.
Perfect. Thanks for the overview, Sammy. If folks cannot hear me, just let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I'll keep talking. For this segment, we'll just highlight a few main findings and takeaways from our project so far. Starting with year one of the biggest takeaway that we learned right away after talking to Black and Latino students is that, and their teachers, that they conceptualize, they understand math engagement in a much more holistic way compared to traditionally in the research, we talk about math engagement as behavioral, cognitive, emotional, and social. But talking to the Black and Latino students and their teachers, we learned a lot that math engagement cannot be separated from, for example, teacher-student relationship, having access to basic resources or family support, community support. There are just a lot more things that they brought up that get a more holistic view of math engagement. So with that, the idea is that we will incorporate, honor their voices, and make sure our measure is more holistic in that sense, that it captures all the assets and all the things that I mentioned are important for math engagement. With that, if we go to the next slide, you will see that the very first version of our survey, compared to the traditional survey, we have a lot more measures, a lot more questions. For example, we have 70 survey questions, which is a lot. But the idea is that, again, we want to capture this math engagement more holistically. And the way we do so, after talking to the students and teachers that we collaborated with on our team, they came up with 6 categories, 6 main categories, and you will see that on the slides. For example, visible engagement, feelings, connections to the outside world, things like that. And with 70 items, that's a long survey, we're able to do that by using planned missingness. Essentially, we have randomized versions of the survey so that we still keep the survey within 10 minutes, because that's very important that we heard from the students to keep the survey short. The idea is that we can have randomized versions, still get a lot of data, and on our end, do the analysis to find out what survey questions perform better than others. So that's the first version that we administered last year. And now we are in year 2, already collected the data from this survey. If we go to the next slide, the thing that we are very curious in year 2 is running exploratory factor analysis to see if this new, more holistic conceptualization of math engagement indeed have statistical validity if the categories in fact emerge. Of course, we also did rash analysis and just see how the survey performed overall. So quick overview of what we learned in year 2. Instead of the 6 categories, we actually see an 8-factor structure, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Essentially, it's telling us that there are 8 main elements of math engagement that we are seeing from the survey. Another thing we learned from the survey is that our first version was not able to capture the higher levels of engagement. So in our revision that we're doing right now, we're really thinking hard about what are some things that the most highly engaged students are doing, are demonstrating, and we want to make sure our survey captured that so we can actually capture the higher levels of engagement. With rash analysis, we also did differential item functioning, which is a very important thing we're looking for because, again, the project is trying to center Black and Latino students' voices, and we want to make sure that they are interpreting, they are understanding the questions consistently so that we're not measuring and comparing apples to oranges. All right. In the interest of time, we'll only give you an overview of what are the main findings right now. Like I mentioned, there are 8 factors right now that we're working with. Those are essentially the 8 important things about math engagement that we captured in the survey. You will see, again, things like positive feelings, relationship with math teacher. We have a factor about support for math engagement, for example, and then in the end, we have factors about self-confidence and math outside the classroom, for example, how math matters for their day-to-day life. Instead of going into detail, we'll just show one slide on the next page with each of the factors. And again, the slides will be available. You will see for each of the factors, we have the survey questions that we are working with right now under the factor. Because we have so much data, there's qualitative data, there's quantitative data. With every factor, we demonstrate that with a quote that really illustrates how we conceptualize what the factor means. So with that, I'm gonna hand it back to Sammy for some next steps.
Thank you so much, Diane. So the future. So over the next year, we're going to be refining the items to, as Diane said, capture those higher levels of engagement, determining what items are the most important for Black and Latino students. And then also we're going to be in the process of creating the toolkit that we use, a toolkit of all the resources that we used for creating this measure of math engagement. The most important thing that we found from this project is that engagement looks differently for Black and Latino students and their teachers than maybe the traditional research would suggest. And that might just be in Bloomington Public Schools because of the ways in which school functions. What we think is really important about this project is that we found that it might be important to think about for these kind of softer skills like engagement or social emotional learning, it might be important to create measures that align with the district and how they function in order to correctly capture the way that their students are engaging. Because what we're finding is that students are more engaged than what they are saying. They're more engaged than what they might be showing up with on the traditional survey measures. It's just not capturing the ways that they are engaging. And so it's really important to create measures that are specific for the populations that you're serving and that aren't necessarily as generalizable when you're trying to improve instruction for students, when you're trying to meet their specific needs. And so the toolkit that we're creating will have all the resources that we use to create this project, the ways in which we supported students and teachers in understanding a lot of these complex statistical concepts, these math concepts, how they created surveys. And our hope is that the toolkit can help other school districts and researchers collaborate in order to make measures that work for their student populations. And then, as always, feel free to contact Diane and I at any point in time. We will also share the emails of our fellow researchers if you'd like to reach out to them. And then you can check out our findings using the QR code on our website. So thank you so much, and turning it back to Anna Marie.
Thank you so much. This was a very enlightening presentation, and it's true that we talk a lot about engagement, and we know how important engagement is, and you were opening the box and trying to show us how engagement can be multidimensional and nuanced, and well, really, really interesting. I feel very lucky to be able to connect with this research. So now, without further ado, I'm calling Professor Vanessa Dias-Moretti from the Federal University of São Paulo. She will talk about her research on development of algebraic thinking in primary school in a math club context. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vanessa.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Vanessa Moretti. I would like first thanks for FAPESP and NSF for this invitation. I am professor at the Department of Education of Federal University of São Paulo and permanent faculty member in the graduate program in education. Nowadays, I am the coordinator of working group training of teachers who teach mathematics of the Brazilian Society of Mathematics Education. I will present some ideas of this project, development of algebraic thinking in primary school students and a math club context. This is the research team. We includes research from Brazil and from Canada. I would like to highlight the research Luiz Redford from Laurentian University and Professor Manuel Osvaldo de Moura from University of São Paulo. Also, we have a staff team funded by FAPESP. We have 7 school teachers, a graduate teacher, and 2 undergraduate students. This is a huge group, and we have worked with 2 schools in São Paulo, whom I will show you in the map. The research, the purpose of this research is to investigate the development of students' algebraic thinking over 4 years triggered by pedagogical practices developed in the context of mathematics club based on historical cultural theory. The research question is, how does the pedagogical activity developed in the context of the math club impact the development of algebraic thinking primary school students? Just to contextualize, here is the map of Brazil. It's similar as Professor Alessandro presents, but we didn't do together. This is the Brazilian map. Here we have in Brazil around 250 million people. In São Paulo, this is the blue part, the map. We have around 45 million people. And we have worked in this green circle, is the metropolitan area of São Paulo, in two big cities, São Paulo, the state of São Paulo, and we have the city of São Paulo. On São Paulo and Guarulhos, we have this both cities, and in São Paulo we work in school in grades 2-6, and São Paulo is grades 2-5. In 2023, we worked with 40 teachers and around 950 students. To organize the club, we are based in some ideas of cultural historical theory. The main idea is the social constitution of psyche, the understanding the biological beings become human in the relationship with others and the appropriation of the historical and cultural production of humanity. And the idea of activity, the activity understood as the movement proper of life, as the center unity of human beings' life. This idea of activity is very important to us because we understand this as what puts the potential of knowledge into motion for students. This idea and this illustration is from Louis Redford, and you can see the reference. From these ideas, construction of math club conception have some steps. So the collective activity between teachers and students, the collaborative space focus on playful and motivating tasks, the unity between activity and the development of theoretical thinking through collective discussion and synthesis. Here, idea of true ways we have worked in the club. First one is the teacher training at Math Club. The second one is the development of algebraic tasks with students. In the first one, we have some steps. We start discussing principles of organizing teaching in the Math Club, the study of algebra content and ways to teach it, study of some aspects of history of algebra and how this can help the teaching in the development of learning triggering situations for school students. In the development of algebraic tasks with students, we start with a diagnostic assessment of algebraic knowledge, the resolution by students of learning triggering situations for learning algebraic knowledge, the joint labor between students and teacher, and we always try to finally the situation with this synthesis of theoretical content learned at each stage. Here's a picture, illustration about we have understanding about joint labor. Usually we think beginning with presentation of activity by the teacher, the students work in small groups. So the teachers go by these groups and talk, making questions, give them some tips and propose some general discussions where the groups can share their ideas, their discoveries, their questions, and we repeat and repeat this movement again. We have worked in, this project is in 4 years. We've worked in 2023, and now we are working with new tasks that we are creating. And it's important to say we have schools in a very specific area, a very specific public of students. Usually is a low-income neighborhood. And it's important to say we have a school, especially in São Paulo, where we have a great number of immigrant students. So this is have been a very challenging project. It's very interesting to develop this. From the development of this research, it is expected that the Math Club becomes a playful learning space in the school environment. The collective activity of the students becomes part of the school culture, especially involving learning situations involving algebraic knowledge. We also expect that the Math Club becomes a working methodology for organizing mathematics teaching in service teachers. And finally, the pedagogical activity developed in the Math Club promotes the development of algebraic thinking in students over the 4 years of the research, regardless of social class and gender. Here, I select some pictures of students working together. You can see we are working here with some games, some playful situation. The kids are very interested and working hard to get the goal of the game. And here another pictures here in the outside space in the school. Here is our team in UniFesp, Federal University of São Paulo. And thank you so much. I would like to receive your questions and your commenters, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Examining algebraic thinking at the intersection of play and school culture is really promising. So I look forward to learning more. So at this time, we will have a presentation by Dr. Reginald Hopkins from Virginia State University, who will be presenting about an NSF funded project, Broadening Participation Research Center, HBCU Center for Math Education and Research.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Reginald Hopkins. I'm a professor of the psychology in the Department of Psychology at Virginia State University. And I want to kind of introduce you to a project that we've been working on, a new project. We're in our first year of this project. And the project is designed to really improve the quality of, or the quality of teaching mathematics and the preparation of students who and their performance in mathematics. And we've been engaged in this project in and out for the last 15 years or so, looking at how the algebra project pedagogy really facilitates the teaching of learning of mathematics, as well as the learning of mathematics. And as we move through this project in our first year, I want to introduce you to some of the focus, some of the expectations we have, and some of the our fundamental purpose for engaging in this project. What we really see ourselves as doing, and what we've been doing with all of our intervention, is really trying to study the social, cultural, and cognitive factors undergirding. We primarily focus on African American students, but the model that we implement is applicable to all minority students in general, and how they, we try to improve their math performance our persistence in STEM disciplines and the impact of really, we want to study the culturally responsive and experientially based kind of training and learning experiences on teachers on the one hand and students on the other hand in terms of their learning of mathematics. And facilitating our ability to do this, we use the traditional algebra project pedagogy and the Southern initiative of the algebra project pedagogy, which is designed to engage students in the pre-K through 16 model. So we take students and teachers from kindergarten all the way up through college and training them to facilitate the teaching on the one hand and the learning on the other hand of mathematics. And we primarily want to engage in all of this to really kind of reduce those disparities that exist, particularly for minority students and African Americans, where they are just, what we're finding is that they're underprepared to really enter these STEM careers. And we think, and the research suggests, that the real stumbling block is to where the gatekeeping is done in the area of mathematics. So we focus on trying to overcome these disparities through one, improving the teaching of mathematics, and two, improving the learning of mathematics. And so the function of our center is that it's really has four major components. On the one hand, we engage in what we think of as teacher training, and we use the SIAP or algebra project pedagogy that's really heavily governed by an emphasis on experiential learning of mathematics and being responsive to the experiences, in particular, of minority students and African American students. And what we do is we train teachers how to appreciate those needs of students, both pre-service teachers and in-service teachers. And the in-service teachers, we have a very innovative way of approaching it now. We are in collaboration with 5 other HBCUs, but in Jackson, Mississippi, we have a very innovative way of engaging teachers. We have in conjunction with our project and their emphasis and need for math teachers, there's a concentrated number of freshmen and sophomore students who have committed to teaching in elementary schools, and they're engaged in they will serve as primarily our pre-service teachers who are engaged in learning and teaching of mathematics. And we will engage them and train them how to appreciate and understand math from the algebra project, using the algebra project pedagogy to facilitate learning. So that's the one major component of our intervention. And another major outcome we expect of our intervention is a focus on trying to understand how students really learn math, understand how what is it that really sustains students' persistence in math, and or what undergirds their liking or dislike for mathematics, so that we can definitely engage in more appropriate intervention. And by the same token, we also seek to study teachers and how they begin to, what makes them effective, and how does the algebra project pedagogy enhance their approach to teaching. And because the framework that we use to kind of govern our thinking it evolves out of Margaret Beale Spencer's PVEST model, what she calls the phenomenological variant of ecological systems theory approach to understanding the developmental psychology of Black children in particular and minority students in general, because all of them receive a very disparate and very kind of treatment from those of the traditional, the dominant white population in society, and an understanding of those nuances associated with the potential biases that could undermine their performance becomes, critical for teachers to understand. And what we attempt to do is facilitate teachers' understanding of those and studying how those, that better understanding and appreciation of minority students and or interaction with minority students will facilitate their learning of mathematics. And as we say, the intervention that we are engaged in is it goes from K through 16. And that intervention includes not only students, but teachers at all of those levels, and of course, we have another third or fourth major component that really we think is critical for schools and student learning is the community engagement. And we have a very active engagement of parents and community groups who are facilitating various types of relationship that will enhance learning and respect for what students bring to the classroom. And we think that is critical. But we think all of these components would certainly facilitate our better understanding what we think is a better understanding of just what are those factors that moderate and mediate the effects of teaching, of learning, of teaching mathematics and of learning mathematics. So we are engaged intensely in a way to study the various teaching approaches and or styles or the culturally responsiveness of teachers on both student math attitudes, their math anxiety, their math performance, and ultimately the efficacy of the teachers in that regard, in terms of just how their sense of appreciation and effectiveness in teaching math impacts them. How our training, how our new professional development that we will provide them kind of really will facilitate that understanding. In other words, what we want to do is kind of become the premier center for understanding ways to, reduce anxiety and increase liking and performance in math. We think that's best achieved through improved teaching on the one hand, but also we think it could very well be improved by understanding those quantitative and qualitative experiences that undergird math, efficacy for students. We are studying students at all levels of their development. And what we want to be able to do is say, what are those experiences that really impact teaching students, math efficacy, their attitudes, their performance, and for those who are at the highest level of, the grades or college level, what factors really sustain them? What factors really persist, make them persist in these disciplines where they are largely, in many cases, marginalized and undervalued? And we want to get to the heart of that and perhaps we can facilitate, bridging those challenges through our intervention. So what we're really trying to do with this model or with this center is to really see what experiences shape those dispositions and attitudes toward mathematics, and find ways of reducing those anxieties and enhancing those positive attitudes and feelings associated with math, which will, we think, increase their students' preparation or preparedness and their participation in STEM careers. I think the research that's evolving out of that Diane and Samantha engaged in would greatly enhance our appreciation of just how our intervention may impact this level of engagement that really undergirds math performance. So I look forward to really kind of getting more information about their instruments and about their math engagement measure, certainly going forward, so that we can really look at it and study it, in our interventions. And so, but that's what we are trying to do, and it's we see ourselves as, on the one hand, trying to reduce the disparity in these STEM careers, but we think the key factor is better understanding and appreciation of math and of how to teach it. And we, through over the next several years, this year will be our first full year of implementation. Matter of fact, our teacher training and our tutor training, all of those phases of our intervention really begins this summer. And we look forward to, to reporting back on the outcomes from that data. With that, I guess I will kind of open it up to return it back to the moderators and begin and be open for any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reginald. This was a very interesting presentation, and I think it resonates a lot with our experience in Brazil. Brazil has been experimenting with affirmative actions in higher education, and we deal every day with this kind of problems you are identifying and studying. And it's really interesting to see such a comprehensive and nuanced project that is directed to the different dimensions into which the math experience reach the kids and the young people. So it's very interesting, and I hope to learn more about your project and the efforts you are putting into it. So now we'll have Professor Marcelo Fira from the State University of Campinas, and he will talk about arithmetic for teachers. So he will discuss his research about how to provide an in-service education in face of no pre-service education. Thank you, Marcelo.
Professor, please unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a kind of provocative title, in face of no pre-service education, and in arithmetics, not education in general. And we explain in the first slides. This is a joint work with Rita Guimarães, also from UF-ABC, the same ABC of we were explained what ABC means in this context by Alessandro. I just show you a little bit the context of this project. The main context was probably and this provocative issue of no in-service training or education in arithmetics. This is very literal. Okay, this is a kind of survey made by Curie. It's some 15 years ago, but nearly 20 years ago. But there's no actual real change. That initial training of basic school teachers, they have nearly no training in mathematics issue, not in mathematical content, not in pedagogical contents, methodology connected to this to mathematics. Okay, it's about she made a survey of if I recall well 2 or 3 courses in each of the 27 states in Brazil. So it's a sample, but it's a sample of nearly 70 courses and different basic education, and she found between 36 and 73 hours devoted to mathematical issues. So basic school teachers, it means the first 5 grades here in Brazil, from grade 1 to grade 5, they have no education in mathematics, no education in arithmetics. We can see there is also a context that it's somehow, I'm not claiming that it's only a consequence of that, but a huge gap in mathematics. Okay, so this is a survey made. It is SAEB. It's a state evaluation, regular evaluation, and it's a sample evaluation they made in 21, comparing what is the average knowledge students have when they finish high school. Okay, after 12 years of education. So they have, before the pandemic, they have a gap of 5.1 years. It means out of 12 years of education, there's a gap of nearly half. And due to the pandemic, it was about 6.5 years. It's more than half of this time they spent school. Okay, so they conclude high school knowing what is expected. They should know when they are 10 years old. Okay, 10 or 11 years old, and this gap starts from the beginning. Okay, it just grows naturally. So in some sense, we can say that the exclusion in math education in Brazil is for the general public. Okay, of course it's more intense and more severe for some public, but it's a general issue. So our project is very much committed to developing tools to try to tackle the actual problems we do have in here. Okay, so we were thinking about.
Excuse me, to improve your presentation, I'm going to show it for here, and you just say for me next slide, okay?
You can't see my presentation?
Yes, yes, but it's not very nice, and I can do it from here, okay?
Okay.
Please just say next for me.
Okay. So next. Okay, one more. And one more. Okay, so we were looking at the previous one. We were looking at the previous one. No, we are going up. No, come back.
Okay, I'm trying.
Volta para trás. Volta para trás, você está muito para frente.
Hold on, professor.
Okay. Is it better now? So we were looking at the
Professor,
conditions.
it's just showing a little bit of your presentation. You are on the presentation screen also. I don't know why it's happening. Let me try to project from here. Oh, Roberta is now with her.
Okay. So now we're the correct point. We're looking for it is a survey made by Morricone et al. From foundation here in Brazil for conditions for effective professional development. Okay, so she's listed out of the it's a survey from the professional research literature, 5 conditions that together are needed to have effective for development in-service development to be effective. It means to focus on content and pedagogical content, active learning that was stressed by many people, not just attending to talks. A considerable duration. It means short terms may be nice to improve as appetizer, but not for real effectiveness. To engage a collective participation of teachers in the school and to be coherent with the school content. Okay? It should not phase, it should not battle what's happening at school. Okay. So this was our guidelines in conceiving this project, and our main goal. Next, please. Our main goal, please. My main goal is to create in school and with primary teachers an in-service professional development program in arithmetics. Why to focus on arithmetics? Because arithmetic is the key of everything. It's a very complex content, and everything that comes after that is dependent of it. Okay, please move on. And so what we are doing, and here comes FAPESP to be very important. We are working with a group of teachers in a school. Okay, they are supported by a grant of FAPESP between 5 and 10 teachers. We are in the second year, so this number of teachers it changes along. There is a lot of teachers leave this school and move to another school and things like that. But there is a group of stable teachers. Since they receive a grant from FAPESP, they are quite engaged. And we have some winter and summer intensive seminars. It means some days being together all day long, and weekly meetings. Okay, so once a week we attend school. In the morning we make observations in classroom, and it's really lovely to be in classroom with the children. Looking at the teacher's classroom, sitting by the students and looking at their works. And in the afternoon, we have our meeting with the teachers every week. This year, the second year of the project, we started documenting classroom with video. Okay, please, another one. Okay, what will be then our main outcome? Our main outcome, projected outcome, it will be it's under construction, let's say, but it's in advanced phase. It will be a course for in-service training of teachers. Part of it will be presential synchronous meetings. Part of it will be individual study of the teachers. We are using very nice materials developed in United Kingdom. This NCTM, it's the National Center for Excellence in Teaching Mathematics. They have amazing materials, and part of it will be also lesson study. our idea is to next year to have this course and to assess the course itself. Okay. Okay, so please, just to show some characteristics of the course, we have some 5 short slides. Move to the next one. So we are focusing a lot of the concept starting from the very beginning. Okay, it's an issue that counting does not depend on the nature of the object. This is the process of abstraction in mathematics that start here. Another one, please. Many contextualized situations, many situations that leads to the same operation, the same operations, but in very different contexts, very different mathematical modeling. Okay, it's the subtraction itself, the difference, and how much less. They're very different situations, very different for students. Please, another one. Exploring a lot student strategies. Okay, those are pictures from the students, 4th grade students, presenting how they compute 5 times 49. Okay, it's their strategies. They are very privileged, those strategies for mental calculation. Okay, so making adding up 55 times and subtracting 5, or separating the units and the tenths, and then adding up together. A lot. Next one, please. Exploring a lot intermediary algorithms. Okay, those algorithms that have conceptual clarity. Try to avoid the final algorithms. They work as black boxes. Okay, nobody really understands and should not really understand what's happening there. But there are lots of intermediate algorithms that they gain a lot in conceptual clarity, and lose a little in terms of efficiency, algorithm efficiency. And okay, and please, another one. And a lot of classroom actual situations. Okay, both a lot of emphasis on students' errors. Understanding student errors is a how to say, it's really a nice activity. It's really interesting to try to understand how these things, errors, don't come from out of nowhere. It comes from out of a misconception, a preconception, or whatever. By the way, as a byproduct of this side product of this project, we are developing a project comparing comparative issue with students there in Brazil and Germany, with the colleagues, and many videos analyzing and looking at school, looking at class. I mean, it will be try to have our feet in classroom and not in theoretical mathematics. Please, another one. We have some in order to develop this project. We need we have at least 3 byproducts. Okay, the first of them is the following. If you want to evaluate an impact of our course, the best proxy for this, and as if we are able to enhance the pedagogical content knowledge of primary schools teachers. Why? Because this is the best project. This is the best measure that is predictive of the students' development. Okay, the development of students. We need much more time to assess it. We are planning to have that, but the first proxy is that. So we are developing a PCK instrument that will be a written one, and this will be developed with Stefan Kraus for Regensburg University. And this is not to assess the teachers, to evaluate the teacher, but to assess the impact we may have on them. A second byproduct will be, and please another one. It will be a video collection. Okay, there is no video classroom video collections in Portuguese from Brazil that can be used either in service education or pre-service teachers education. So we have. Of course, there is all the issue of having authorization, everyone, but and we are taking care of it. But it will be a product by itself. I mean, to have those edited small clips of videos focusing on different issues that can be used. And finally, please, the next one. So since we are working at school with teachers, and our first commitment is to I mean that there are the needs. There are the needs of school of the school teachers, and due to this huge gap, they are trying to regroup the kids of the same class of kids in different groups according to the necessities. So we are developing an adaptive test to support the decisions how to regroup the teachers, and this is not it's not a test that it's for the central authorities to evaluate the school and things like that. It's just a test to help teachers to make their decisions. So it's a lengthy test. It's adaptive. Written one, part of it, it's oral. The small kids that don't know how to read and write. And it's deeply connected to the textbooks. Okay, so if you are failing in there, so what you should do? Okay, go to this chapter. This is the content you should work. Okay, that's it. Finally, I want to thank you. The next slide is just a thank you slide, and to thank everybody for the opportunity to present it here. To apologize for this slides issue.
All right, thank you so much for that presentation. I really appreciate the focus on early math. So foundational is the bedrock of everything that, as I'll say, we secondary teachers, I'm a former high school math teacher, get to build upon. So thank you for that thoughtful work, not just with students, but also thinking about preparing teachers to teach early math well. Very important. So at this time, we have a little bit of time left for some Q&A. And so we invite our panelists to turn on their cameras, and anyone else who'd like, but for sure our panelists to turn on their cameras so that we can put out some questions. So for those who haven't had the opportunity to check the Q&A, there's been some conversation happening during presentations, and some folks had the opportunity to go in and answer questions. But we want to first thank you all for your wonderful presentations. Thank you. I learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to hearing more. We welcome folks to still put their questions in the Q&A if you have any, but right now you all just enjoy your wonderful round of applause coming in from those who are participating. So, Dr. Hopkins, there's one quick question for you regarding the other HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, for those who are unfamiliar with the acronym, that are participating in the center.
Well, yeah, we have Virginia State University, Virginia Union University, Dillard University, Xavier University, Jackson State University, and Tuvalu College, both in Mississippi.
Wonderful, very nice. And so let me see, that was the last question in the box, but you all feel free to keep asking. I think I would really like to give you all a chance to think about your work in light of the presentations. Anybody thinking about any connections that can be made to someone else you heard present or thinking across the projects? Anyone share any points of synergy or wonderings?
Well, I definitely look forward to Samantha and Diane, utilizing that skill that they're developing to look at student engagement and how it impacts their motivation, performance, and how it's connected with student anxiety when it comes to math and student performance when it comes to math.
May I? I think it would be nice to have contact for Professor Ismila Ramos. We have different subjects of research, but I think here in Brazil, in my research, we have some challenges, and maybe we can change experience and talk about this. It would be nice. Thank you.
I totally agree. I think there's been a lot of themes about, thinking creatively around approaches and models and measures. And so I think we have a lot that we can learn from each other, even though our focus areas may be different and the audience we're working is different. But I think just the way that we approach the problems and try to think outside of the box has been really nice theme across the sessions.
For sure. I keep hearing this notion of like context coming up across. And so though the contexts may be different, the considerations for working with communities, while thinking about mathematics, while foregrounding mathematics education, I think there is a lot of opportunity there. Yeah, sure. So I want to keep it open and see if anyone has, or do you have any questions for each other? I see a really interesting question here, or rather just statement here. There's a question, it's for Sammy and Diane about whether they think this kind of approach will work within a not so racially segregated community they see in Brazil. I think that's a really fascinating, just tacking on this, really continuing with this idea of context.
So this approach would work anywhere where you have a willing group of people who are wanting to change the way in which they're thinking about measurement and assessment within their school system. And so in the United States and the areas in which we're working, a lot of our measurement tools, I would say, were developed in more non-racially segregated neighborhoods. And so when we apply them to neighborhoods that are predominantly served by people of color, they might not work as well. And so that's kind of what the nexus of our project was focused on, was okay, maybe we shouldn't be applying these measures across the board. Maybe people are different. Shocker. And so I think this process would work with any teachers or students or administrators who are interested in creating measures for their own population, because we also know that all students are different. They all show up differently. And that culture and context plays a big role in how students are showing up in the education setting. And so when we adapt measures to meet those needs, capture those different experiences, it can be quite helpful in shining a light on how we can better serve students. And I think just one other little bit, Bloomington Public Schools uses a I forget the name of it right now, but it's like basically where they teach math in a collective like setting. So it's like a lot of group learning. Students aren't off on their own individually learning. Students are always group learning. And there's like a special name for it, and I'm forgetting it right now. But because students are always group learning, engagement looks different in that school system. And so I think like it just also highlights the importance of even the way in which instruction is happening is really important to capture in these measures. And it's not currently captured.
If I can add a few things, I think the approach would definitely work. I think in the US context, we focus on Black and Latino students because that's where we see a lot of racial inequities in the STEM field in the US. In other contexts, it might be gender, it might be other social dimensions where inequity is the most salient. So just depending on the context, I'm thinking about the first presentation, Dr. Smirla's, like even holistically, often we think about educators having more power than families, but families have access as well. So what does it mean to bring families into the picture, sit at the same table? Similar approach I'm hearing. So also curious if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, I just feel like at least in our context, families have been positioned as outsiders, and so their points of views and ideas haven't been brought into the conversation. And so having models or opportunities or measures that bring in that perspective really help us think about what should be changing and where we should put in our efforts to try to address some of the inequities that have been, part of systems.
Yeah, I wonder, since all projects are really keen in building knowledge also, as well as in intervening and changing realities and making a difference, I wonder to which extent this kind of like international discussion, international collaboration can help to, I don't know, to give a different perspective or to help complexify something that is already very complex, or at least to give the opportunity to explore some hypotheses or some of the understandings we have about our contexts, right? I'm going back to this point that Toya made very well, that context is very important in these projects, right? So I'd like to hear a little bit about that from you. Thank you.
If I can follow up from that question as an extension, I would like for Smirla to give us kind of like some color on how this bridging of the family and parents and teachers, what's the methodology connected with that again. I think that's going to be a critical variable that we need to really build upon.
And I can only speak to it in terms of like early childhood preschool programs, but the models that we're trying are based on creating those spaces for discussion and where ideas can be shared across and create awareness of the knowledge and the assets that already exists within families and try to balance the power a little bit. I feel like in the space that we are, that has been a welcome model. I don't know how it will like transfer to other areas, but I do have some colleagues that try it with like middle school or, upper elementary classes. But I think just thinking creatively about how we can bring together and address some of the power imbalances that exist between schools and families would be really important. I guess we're trying to learn like what does it take to establish this model? What are the kinds of discussions and strategies that we need to use in the space to be able to get to these, bigger outcomes? So we're still kind of in the beginnings of the stage, but we're learning like preparation, like being able to talk to teachers separately and parents separately about what we're trying to do creating those norms and like how we want to work together, what's important for families and what's important for teachers, and prioritizing their goals and their values. All of those things are contributing to good conversation that hopefully leads to some changes in the system.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So we have a question here from where is it? Has disappeared. Okay, Dr. Silver
answered it.
Yeah, I found this question so interesting. I was wondering if you would rather answer it aloud. What do you think?
Can, and then Diane could jump in too. So it's not necessary. So the question is it is not clear how the measurements are different with people of color. Can you give an example? And it's not necessarily that they're different. We are instead changing the focus of the measures to center the lived experiences of Black and Latino students, which just changes the types of questions that are getting asked, because we are rooting every question in what they've said, what they've experienced, what they are seeing as engagement. So for example, based on students' lived experiences, we added questions about perception. So how they are being seen by other people, how they see other people. We've added questions on social identity. So how is we don't explicitly ask about race, but essentially it's kind of coded in the language, but how is who they are impacting the ways in which they're showing up in the classroom. We've also added questions about family support. We know we've learned from students family support is extremely important for them, and it translates over to engagement in the classroom. And so those questions are added as well. And then we've also moved questions to focus less on the individual and more on the community. We recognize that individual focused questions aren't the ways in which students are seeing engagement. It's actually more of the community itself is how they're seeing engagement. And so these aren't necessarily, these measures aren't necessarily different. They're just written like that. We've just adapted them and changed them around to better capture the ways in which Black and Latino students experience their learning, their classroom, their engagement. Also importantly, we're making sure that all these measures still work with students who don't identify as Black and Latino, so that when Bloomington Public Schools is administering this survey, it still is valid for capturing how white students are showing up in the classroom. It's still valid for capturing how Asian students are showing up in the classroom. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing.
So thank you. There's a question to Dr. Moretti. So it's the question is, what's the algebraic thinking conception you work with, and how do you work with children of 4-year-olds, which means what kind of activities are you proposing to them? Okay. So it's Maria Aparecida Vigiani Bicudo. Thank you for your question.
Hello, Professora Maria Aparecida Bicudo. Thanks for your question. Actually, we don't work with children of 4 years old. We work with children for primary school in the first years and the primary school here in Brazil. We work from second grade until in one school until 5th grade and another until 8th grade in the future in 4 years. But about the idea of algebraic thinking, we have based our works and works of Luis Redfern, and is a very complex theory, but basically we can think the algebraic thinking is to be able to think analytically. So this is the main idea. Of course, it's much more complex, but this is the main idea. Thank you. But we can talk in other moments if you want. Thank you.
Yeah, since if you have time, I'd like to hear from Dr. Reginald about how he is engaging college professors or teachers or instructors in this project. We talked about that as well.
Yeah. Well, college professors are undergoing the professional development training as the K through 12 teachers. So they have to I mean, we've had projects in the past where we've used the algebra project pedagogy to develop a college level algebra course, and those college professors really go through a training for college algebra that, you know, as a part of this training that really introduces some of the pedagogy of the algebra project and the Southern Initiative Algebra Project, you know, methodology and pedagogy and strategies that they use. So we would take the math professors at the various institutions, universities, and integrate them into the training with the K through 12 teachers. And for those K through 12 teachers, generally the high school teachers who are focusing on algebra, they tend to kind of work together in their cohort, you know, as a part of the training.
Okay, thank you. It seems that we do have some time, so maybe we can give you an opportunity to talk, to tell us about the challenges you are facing, you've been facing in these projects. What do you think are main difficulties? And of course, if you can expand and tell us how you were, I don't know, confronting them and solving them, to be helpful as well. Thank you.
For us here in UFABC, and I think the teacher education in general in Brazil, I think the big problem we have that is we try to education our teachers to develop some competencies and some practices, but when they arrive at school, the school doesn't have a structure, it doesn't have time, it doesn't have support for them to change their practice. So I think we do something in the professional development program, for example, and at school, the teacher don't have the support from the principal or for the stage or for the coordinators. So I think it's a big problem we have. We do something in the research, but when we would like to implement this at school, it's difficult because there is some contingencies. I think we have to try to thinking about how can we do to help teachers that want to improve their practice. How can we help them to do this at school? In the conditions we know that in Brazil it's not easy to primary, secondary teachers schools work. I don't know if I'm clear because, well.
I would like to complete because I think we have the very similar realities. Where we have worked, we have a very strong support of the coordination, but the big problem is the teachers usually work in two schools, so they are all the time running. They work in one school at morning, another school at afternoon. So we have worked at school. This is the idea. The teacher trainings have happening in the school, in schools, both. But even it's hard because we have a little time. We have planned around 1 hour and we have 40 minutes to work. And this is a problem. And this is the reality. It's the concrete situation of life of them. So I think this is one question. And another is we have tried to help them to be able to plan their own activities, yes, to think about the knowledge, to think about the content, and not just to give them some tasks ready for application. So we need time to do this. And I think this is a problem. I need to think in the Brazilian reality. I don't know. I think it's not Brazilian specifically, but I have opportunity here with the FAPESP and this kind of projects to think ways to do this together and think solutions for these problems together.
That's a very good point, Vanessa. Thank you. And thank you, Alessandra, as well. Yeah.
Can I add just one point, short point? There is a lot of difficulty because there is a lot of turnover of teachers at school. Okay, there's a lot of temporary teachers, a huge amount. I mean, nearly half of the teachers, they're temporary. I mean, so it's amazing that the school, they cannot really be a school. So a lot of movement. It's very hard to invest in teachers when they are moving around all time. And this is also a general point in Brazil in general.
Yeah, thank you. Do our colleagues from the United States want to pitch in about this? Context difficulties, structural difficulties? Is there anything like that you face in your research?
All the same things for us, for sure. And then I think one other piece that's been a little bit challenging for our research is because we're doing all of our research in partnership with teachers and students, just having them have the time that they need to dedicate to all of this work is really hard. Even like we pay them to be as members of our research team, and even with like we drive the students around, we remove as many barriers as we can, but just having the time because they are so busy. And this is another thing that they have to do. And so it's just hard to always have all of them together at the same table. So we do a lot of individual meetings. We do a lot of catching them up. So yeah, that's just been a challenge for us. But we are very grateful to have a school district that really loves this project and is helping to remove barriers for us.
I would say same as Samantha mentioned, like at least for my model, it just takes engagement, continued engagement with teachers and parents, and having the opportunity to have them in the same space for longer periods of time. And everybody's so busy and there's so much going on that can be a challenge. We're trying to figure out if it's feasible, like, and what's feasible for parents and teachers to be able to do on top of the other things. And then aligning with like what our community partners need. Sometimes the needs that they have are much larger than the needs that I have in terms of research. And so making sure that the project aligns with what those needs are, and that the research contributes in ways that are meaningful for them, so that the partnership can continue.
Well, thank you. Are there any lessons learned that you'd like to share with us today? In terms of this, of course, this very challenging context you operate. So while
I don't know if this is a lesson learned or something that I learned that just keeps getting reiterated, like reminded, is just like how important it is to be open-minded about the different ways in which research can be conducted, and the different ways in which teachers and students will use research, and how they think about these types of concepts like math learning, engagement, social emotional learning, motivation. Because like almost everything we're doing so far is kind of not fully aligned with the research base. The research methods are, but not like the findings. And so it's just really important to always keep pushing, even though we do know a lot about these topics. It's always like we can always learn more.
Okay, thank you. This is good. There's a question from Priscilla Gianlorenzo. She would like to know if you, all of you, have anything to have thought about or have dealt with students with disabilities, mostly, for example, neurodivergent students, autism. If because in Brazil, let me give you some context. In Brazil, we have this inclusive education perspective. So the whole system is organized around this idea that neurodivergent students and other students with other disabilities are completely integrated in the regular classrooms. So anytime you think about a project that will reach the students, you have to consider also these students. So I would like to know a little bit from our Brazilian speakers and also from the US speakers, if you have this, to make this kind of considerations in your research. No?
Unfortunately, I think it's a very specific area, and it's difficult to work without a partnership from the special education, for example. Now in Brazil, we have, in the case of mathematics education, we have some specialists that work with inclusive mathematics education and even in neuroscience in mathematics education. So I think it's a thematic to maybe to thinking about it on another webinar, because it's very interesting, it's very important, but it's very specific.
Okay. Thank you, Alessandro. Yeah, I think Aldo Lopes is asking Dr. Moretti if you have any insights on algebraic thinking in higher education for those working on higher education. So if you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us.
Thanks for the question. I have to work with higher education, but I think there is a reflection we can think about is the difference between algebraic thinking and algebraic knowledge. Because usually when we see research about algebra in higher education, we are focused on the content, on the algebraic knowledge. And even if the students in the higher education are able to resolve some questions and some procedures, usually they don't understand what they are doing. So this is not thinking algebraic like we understand in this reference from Hedford we share with you all. So I think this is a way to think about and maybe can be helpful.
Thank you, Dr. Vanessa. Alessandro?
Yes, I would like to comment about this question from Aldo, because we have been researching in the algebra in the graduate and the undergraduate studies. And I think the more important in the few words, of course, is the connection between how algebra you teach in higher education and how algebra the teacher will be able to teach in the school. For example, if it's necessary, is it really necessary to teach groups, rings, and fields in the abstract algebra? Obviously, it's important. It's important. But if we don't connection this content with the math from the secondary school, for example, functions, equations, there is no meaning to teach something. So algebraic thinking is more specific to primary school, the early algebra. But when talking about algebra in the higher education, it's very important to make connections between these and the mathematics that teachers have to teach in the secondary school.
Yeah, thank you, Alessandro. Yeah, so I don't see any other questions here. Is there anything you'd like to add? I asked the speakers if there's any point, any observation, final comment. Okay, so I'm just looking.
Yes, I have one final question, and it's a final question for us to think about, because if distance education is important for primary and secondary education, we have to think about how we can training teachers to work with this amalgam of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, because we have graduated in a disciplinary area. And now we want the teachers into the interdisciplinary areas. So I think one challenge for us is how can I educating teachers to teach STEM, and specifically how the role of mathematics in STEM education.
Yeah, very good point. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. So I think we can, I don't know, I think, let me just say, yeah, thank you very much to all of you. It was really an honor to get to know your work and to interact with you today. And I think, I hope we can get in touch and keep in touch. I would love to continue to follow your work. It's very important and very relevant to our societies. Thank you very much. Good